Alrighty, and we are live.
Perfect.
Alright,
Welcome,
so
everyone, to this debate. We have a debate between Sean Hufford and Sleeping Warrior, otherwise known as Anthony Riley. We're going to be talking about Cold Moonlight. My name is Reds Rhetoric. I will be your moderator and host. So,
alrighty, and we
yay.
are
I
live.
will only interrupt when necessary if
Perfect.
things get heated and we can't understand what the hell people are saying because there's over talking. So when I say shut up, that goes for both of y'all. So, Sean Hufford, please introduce yourself, even though
Uh,
you don't need any introduction.
Hold on one second. I just want to, just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. I did turn off monetization for this video. I will, however, we are going to start doing some fundraisers again for Sean. We had to kind of put those on hold after Strike's passing because at the time, my mom needed some help at that moment. So we will start doing that again. I will post his PayPal in the chat. So instead of doing any kind of anything toward the super chats or anything like that, you can send stuff there, and that will be monitored as well.
Perfect.
So all right, I will give it over to Sean.
All right, Sean, please
Hello,
introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, that kind of thing. Even though we already know, say it anyway.
I'm Sean Hufford, channel with the same name. Been doing this for almost 5 years now. And some resurrected claims have been brought up, which is leading us to where we're at today, to where Anthony has done some of his own tests, I have done some of my own, and we're here to compare results. And other than that, I think what we can let Anthony introduce himself. He's kind of new to this channel. He's been around the block a few times, so I'll pass this off to Anthony to let him introduce himself.
Perfect. Anthony, floor is yours.
39 from England. My first ever hangout was with Red Rhetoric, believe it or not. I realised that we're not on a ball, and one of the questions, one of the points that is a debate point or an interesting topic nonetheless, regardless of what your position is whether or not Moonlight is indeed cold or cooling to some degree. I set up a test recently to see if I could establish my own views on it. I did get some results. I did have patchy cloud, so it's not as persuasive as what I was hoping. But nonetheless, I do have some results that I can make some statements on based on my experience and my research. And I'm interested to see what you guys have both got or what Sean's got because, well, for me, it does appear that Moonlight does appear to be cooling. So I guess I'm here to see what evidence you guys have created, and you can see what I've got, and then hopefully we can come to a conclusion on whether or not we feel that Moonlight is in fact cold, cooling.
All right, perfect. Then, in continuing on, Sean, I'm going to address this to you. Whenever you're not talking, go ahead and please mute yourself. Because while I enjoy animals such as birds, I kind of want to survive this debate while having my ears not bleed. So, with that, we're going to start off by flipping a coin on who's going to go first. So, Anthony Riley, heads or tails?
Heads I win, tails you lose.
I'm going to go with heads for you because, yeah. Okay. It's heads. Riley, do you want to go first or do you want Sean to go first?
Sean can set the standard. Sean can put the bar on the mat thing. So let's see where you go with this, Sean.
All right. So, Riley, please mute your mic, and Sean, the floor is yours to control the conversation.
All right. As we all know, a few weeks back, somebody was gracious enough to send me a thermal imaging camera, which actually detects the surface temperature of whatever you're pointing at. And I've been doing a lot of, either testing or just having fun with it because it really is an amazing piece of technology. And I did one that was kind of fun to do, just watching coffee and how the temperature regulates as you stir it with, cream in the coffee. But I actually took out the camera on a moonlit night once. The first time was to actually look at the north and west side of a building because the west side of the building was in moonlight for more than 2 hours, and the north side of the building was never hit by moonlight at all. And I compared the temperatures on both sides of the wall, and they reached the same temperature range. There was no difference at all. Jesse, if you will pull up, let me see which video that was. That's not it. I believe it was that one. Just going to verify because I got like 9 videos to deal with here. Sorry, give me a second.
Trying to load.
It's trying to load. And it appears VLC has crashed. You done broke it. Okay, let's try this again. Sorry, Anthony. You got the folder open. It should be 17. Yes, this is it. Go ahead and... Okay, so this is me walking up to the building from the west side, or the west face. So she's sharing the screen now. Dink. And we're going to transition that for the other people to see it. And transition. Okay, so this was me walking up to the building near my apartment from the west side. And you'll see a temperature range between 43, go ahead and play it. You'll see a temperature range between 43 and 39 degrees of the wall that's facing the moonlight. It's had direct moonlight for 2 hours. And then I'll walk around to the north side of the building that has had no moonlight at all. And the temperature range is actually lower. It's from 41 to 37 degrees. So it's actually colder in the moon shade. And this was just right around the corner, so it wasn't a difference in materials. It wasn't a difference in internal building temperature. This was on the same corner. So this demonstrates that moonlight is in fact warmer than the shade after 2 hours of direct moonlight. So if you want to ask questions about this one, Anthony, feel free. Because we'll do this one video at a time.
So, Anthony, you have the floor. Sean, please mute your mic. Yes. I'm going to control the conversation, so I'll tell both y'all to mute at specific times. So, Anthony, please unmute your mic, and Sean, please mute your mic. And Anthony, you have the floor.
That bird in the background's terrible. Right. I don't really have anything to ask about this. I mean, I'd rather kind of present my findings myself, and then we can see where we come to, because your conclusion based on what you've presented is not what really I was expecting. I was expecting like some raw data, graphs, and then interpretation of graphs based on what you found. But what you've demonstrated is not really what I was expecting at all. And for you to say that moonlight is warmer than the shade seems to me to be backwards, because I did my test recently, and it was absolutely freezing in the direct moonlight. And I don't know whether it's placebo in my mind, but I think what I'll do is I'll just screen share my results. Before I do, I'll just show to the audience that I do have the document here for my stuff, and I'll show you how I did mine in a sec. But there's my raw data, and it doesn't really mean anything until you plot it into a graph format. So what I need to do before I screen share is recover the photograph that I sent to Jessica recently, where I can show her what my setup actually was. And what I did was I got 3 different thermometers, mounted them in a plank of wood. There we go. If I now screen share this, so share. Hang on, it's been a while since I've used this.
The sharing is at the bottom of the center of the screen. Sorry.
Share, okay. Share screen 1, screen 2. That's what I want there. Share that. Okay, so let me know when you see what I have.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so what I did was I got a piece of 4x2, drilled some holes in it, and I mounted my 3, they're identical, 3 thermometers protruding through, so that the probe part was exposed. One of them was the control, which is the first one. The second one was what I thought was a manipulation caused by a parabolica, which was reflecting the focal concentration of light back to the probe. It's crude, but it was to try and enhance or exaggerate or amplify the light from the moon. And then the third one was just a shade causing tin that was blocking the direct sunlight, so the probe then would be in the shade. And the idea, of course, would be that the probe would be giving me my baseline, and then the one that I manipulate would be enhancing the moonlight. So I would expect this to get colder. And then the control, the other one would be causing shade, therefore should get warmer. And obviously my control gives me my baseline. So whatever this does, these really, if moonlight has no effect and it's the same or shade or amplified or not, they should follow the same pattern. So if this one goes down, then this one should also go down. This one should also go down. If this one goes up, then this one should go up. Then this one should go up. But on my night, I mean, we've had like really shitty weather here for the last couple of days, all over the time when we've had the new moon. Today right now is the best weather that we've had so far because it's been wet. But this hand on the left-hand side represents the raw data that you saw before. And this is my graph, because you just can't tell what it means when you're looking at it in raw data form. You've got to plot it. And you can see my ledger on the side tells me that the control is the blue line, this darker line. And you can see that this represents patchy cloud. I did everything prior to the 5th minute. Everything was the same in the sense that there was no manipulation. So I would expect them all up to the 5th minute to be the same. Relative to each other, they should do the same thing. But then after that, the 6th minute onwards up to the 10th minute, that's where I did my manipulation. And that's where I would expect there to be deviations from the control. So for the first 5 minutes, the control should be continuous and consistent for all of them. But then for the last 5 minutes, there should be a variation because I am directly, in my opinion, I'm directly manipulating my independent variable, my presumed cause, my direct moonlight. So let's look at let's look at the results and let's see what we see. So my control is the lower line, and for the first 5 minutes, because the way this has worked, it's got like a really long depth to the graph, so it's right down here. It's difficult to squash this up because I'm not quite sure how to get rid of these lower values, but up to the 5th, this halfway point, I expect all the values to be consistent with each other because I'm not manipulating anything, I'm not changing anything. And you can see it gets to about this point here and then things start changing. So the thermometer probes are all relative to each other, pretty much the same. There's one that's a little bit higher than the other. This one seems to be dropping, and this one is the control, the blue. But they should all be relative to each other until the halfway mark. And then when I get to the halfway mark, that's when I cause a change because I'm manipulating the independent variable, the presumed cause. So I am expecting things to change, but they should be all relative to the control. So as you can see, the control, for some reason, and it's to do with the patchy cloud, but the control drops a little bit. So the other two, the parabolica, which was the ice cream scoop, and the shade that was caused by the WD-40 tin, the parabolica should get colder, which it does seem to get colder, and the shade should get warmer, which it does. It drops for a bit, but then it gets warmer, and then you can see that relative to the control, as the control drops, the parabolica also drops with it, but the shade goes up. But then it goes a little bit weird because I've got patchy cloud for the last few minutes and I just couldn't get a clear window where I was getting consistent results because every time the cloud had come over, it would be ready to measure it. And I didn't want to skew the results or anything. I needed to record it the way that it was. And to be honest, it's kind of inconclusive because they're a bit all over the place. But what is clear is that as the control drops, you would expect all three of them to drop with it. Now, the parabolica one, the middle one, did drop with it because I was manipulating it, and the WD-40 did rise. It did get warmer. So as the other two are going down in temperature, the one that's got the shade on it does seem to go up. Now, as I say, it is shade creating. It is patchy cloud, and it is skewing the results to some degree. And I've just not had the weather to be able to do it again, and I will be doing it again. But the conclusions that I see is that the shade one does definitely seem to be warmer than the other two, which seem to go cooler. But I do accept that patchy cloud kind of made it skewed. But that's not the same result that Sean got. Sean got with his thermal camera images. He claims that the moonlight is warmer than the shade. And I don't have that data, that graph representation at all, because for me, the shade clearly drops off and gets, it drops off initially, but then gets warmer and then stays warmer for the duration. Whereas the parabolica one, which is the middle one, the ice cream scoop, this drops off with the control. And that's exactly what I expected. So Sean's results are not consistent with mine. And based on the evidence that Sean presented, I would say that mine's better, even though I would concede that it was patchy cloud work. And on that basis, I can't say it's totally strong. But I can say that it does seem to indicate that if you manipulate the Moonlight directly, you do seem to be able to manipulate it, and it does seem to cause an effect depending on what you're trying to achieve. And I would say Sean should perhaps consider trying it the way I've done it next time, and maybe we should compare results next time. Get an ice cream scoop and get something that casts a shadow. And if I pull it back up again now, you can see, I'll bring it back up, not that one.
I think I'm going to stop you there just so that Sean can, reply.
Sure.
So, Sean, Anthony, please mute. Sean, unmute.
Okay. The first thing I want to reply to is about how you say I have no data go on. I'm actually going by direct measurements that actually are graphically shown throughout the video, showing the high and lowest temperature points of the surface I'm measuring. It is a real-time measurement of temperature. So, yes, there is a lot of data in my videos. So to just wave hand dismiss them by saying I have no data is absolutely not correct. That's why I like the thermal imaging camera, because it actually measures the temperature of the surface, and not just as a whole. Each pixel is being measured in real time, which is why you'll see the hot and cold spots changing from time to time as it finds a hotter or colder spot. Now, the first video I showed the entire surface of a wall that had 2 hours of moonlight versus an entire surface of wall that had no moonlight at all. But dealing with your ice cream scoop, I've actually done something similar where I went by your original experiment that you were going to do with the magnifying glass. I used a plastic magnifying glass, a glass magnifying glass, and a parabolic mirror, which is what your ice cream scoop did. And again, in this video, which is actually on my channel now, it showed 0 temperature change using magnification. Oh, sorry, it's got to be shared. Just a second, bear with me. So share there. Yes, shop the other person's screen sharing. There you go.
I shared through OBS. Hold on.
And now it's got to go through OBS to share it. So mild transition. Sorry about the delay, Anthony. This is a new setup. So, and here's one point that I'd like to make early on in the video. I actually show the moon in the sky, showing that it is actually warmer than having no moonlight everywhere else. It's actually showing up as a heat source through the camera. So go ahead and unpause that. And that's what that little dot is up there. That's the moon. So I'm using a plastic board as a target because of its thermal properties, the way it transfers heat. It doesn't do it very well, but it retains hot and cold pretty good. It's a good insulator, which is why I chose it. That way the heat or cold would stick in one spot and wouldn't spread to skew the results somewhere else. Right here is where I'm using the plastic magnifying glass like you were initially going to do. And I magnify the moonlight onto the board, and it causes 0 temperature change. I'm getting the moon in focus at this point. So in a second I'll pan it to the left where I'm actually getting the moonlight being magnified onto the board, and there will be no temperature change. And after this I will switch over to the glass magnifying glass and do the same thing. Now there are different magnification levels, so the glass one I have to put farther away. But then I'll switch over to my parabolic mirror, which I have to put about 2.5 feet away from the board to get it to focus the moonlight. Which is why I wanted to talk about your ice cream scoop, because you had it right on your thermometer, which causes all kinds of conduction and convection issues, which we'll discuss later. So this is where I switch over to the glass magnifying glass. And again, I'll focus the moonlight and it will show 0 temperature change by magnifying it. And if you have questions about whether or not this thermal camera is actually sensitive enough to pick up small changes in small areas, I actually have another video where I've actually taken a laser pointer and pointed it at the board and watched that temperature increase in a single spot, showing that magnifying into a single spot will register on this target. And there is no temperature change at all from moonlight.
All right, thank you. Sean, please mute.
We're about to go over to the parabolic mirror, where I actually have to hold the board towards the moon.
Okay, continue.
I just want Anthony to see that magnifying with the mirror did absolutely nothing.
All right, understood. So, Sean, you can please mute. So Anthony, go ahead and respond to that. Does Sean's real-time observations along with the data points plastered all over the monitor count as data points that can be deciphered?
I don't know. I don't know how reliable or credible the evidence is because I've never used one of them before and I've never really seen anybody else using one. I don't know. But what I can do is address a couple of points that he made. Sean, if you want to stop sharing, it says I can't share while you are. So if I now bring this back up, you made reference to the parabolica that I had on screen. The parabolica is the reason why it's close is because of the size of it and the deepness of it. Obviously, if there is a reflection of any light, it's going to be relative to the size of it, and obviously it's quite small. If you think that it's too close, I can change it to say a salad dish or something like that that's bigger. But obviously it's close because the beam is or the light is going to be reflected back towards it based on its depth and its size, and that's the focal point roughly. Might not be exact, but it's close enough for me to say that that's the reason why I did it that way. But believe it or not, with us being in winter at the minute, thermal conductivity and convection of heat from that ice cream scoop's not really going to be an issue in winter because it's absolutely freezing. So I'm not really sure that that's a fair criticism. But that being said, I'm prepared to change it if you don't think that's suitable. But let's go back to the results for a minute because the ice cream scoop is the parabolica, the cooler one. If you look at the control, when it gets to the halfway point, the control seems to drop and then goes up and then drop again. And the parabolica is the middle line, and that also seems to drop significantly, indicating that that does seem to support the position. And it does seem to rise, although it seems to be delayed. Meanwhile, the shade one seems to be higher and it seems to be warmer. So although you say that your data points are better or inconsistent with mine, I'm happy with the results that I've got in the sense that I do have a relative control. I did see somebody in chat saying that there wasn't a control. Well, there was. The control is the darker line at the bottom, the blue line at the bottom. And the control is influencing or it's showing the baseline. So as it rises, I'd expect the other one to rise with it. And it did do, although it seems to be delayed. But this is my first go at this. And I didn't have ideal weather conditions. But I think for me, what you're demonstrating with yours is when you've got your data points, that's essentially like this part here where I've got my data points and they don't really mean anything until you graph them. And I would say, well, stick them on a graph and manipulate your presumed cause to prove whether or not there is a cooling effect of moonlight, because you can't just correlate it with what you say. You've got to manipulate it, manually manipulate it. So cause a change in the environment by manipulating the moonlight, because otherwise it's correlative, it's not causative. So if you're going to criticize my parabolica, fair enough, but would you at least consider the possibility that your manipulation's not there at all, so that at best it's correlative, not causative?
No, I'll be happy to address that, because now you're saying I didn't control the moonlight at all. I actually controlled it in 3 different ways. With the magnifying glasses, which actually concentrates the moonlight, which ended up with a 0 result in temperature change. And I did it with a parabolic mirror, which is sort of like your ice cream scoop, only it didn't have to deal with the proximity to the ice cream scoop. That's actually a plastic and metal, which is the reason why you're going to get conduction and convection issues, because it's right next to your thermometer. At 2.5 feet, to get that focus point with the mirror, I had 0 temperature change. I actually manipulated the moonlight the same way you did, but because I wasn't that close to the target, I got 0 temperature change. None at all.
Yeah, but I did get a temperature change. If you look at my control, the blue line, relative to the middle line, which is the parabolica, as the blue line goes down, the other one goes down, but there's a bigger gap. So to me, it supports the assertion that when you say it's convection and conduction or whatever it was that you described, the interference caused by the parabolica, that I would say that interference is actually what I am testing. I'm trying to create that interference by manipulating the moonlight. So I'm not sure how you would distinguish between convection and conductive heat loss or whatever compared to the thing that I am actually trying to do.
Let me explain to you what the issue is. You have a plastic-handled ice cream scoop that's made of metal right next to your thermometer. What's happening is your plastic is becoming a massive insulator. It's drawing off all of the heat from the metal ice cream scoop, which is causing a convection current of air over your thermometer, as the heat from around the air around it is trying to go towards the ice cream scoop, which is then storing the heat in the plastic handle. There's your issue. You're too close. You're actually introducing variables that I removed.
So to fix that, would you say a salad bowl, a chrome-plated salad bowl that's got a bigger parabolica to it, would be the remedy?
Yeah, I totally agree. A larger parabola would be perfect because you can actually take it farther away from your target. That way, you know it's not directly influencing because of the materials you're made of. You're just simply
I mean,
too close to your ice cream scoop. Is all I'm saying. It would actually be a better resolution to get a large parabolic mirror or a salad bowl. You don't want to influence by having your light focusing thing as close as possible to your thermometer. You want them as separated as possible. So a parabolic mirror, a makeup mirror that you can get at one of your local stores would be perfect because they have a large focal distance, and you'll remove that variable. That's what I tried to do.
sure, but would you agree though that with this setup, if I went too big, then they would start encroaching and getting closer to the other ones either side?
No, because that would be a convex mirror, and you're actually looking for a concave one. So as long as you get your
Yeah,
focal
but
point,
as this gets bigger, it's going to start getting too close proximity-wise to the other two. Would you agree?
well, no, because the larger the mirror you have there's a parabolic, it's the further back away from all of the thermometers you're going to go, and you just want the focal point to be on your thermometer.
Oh yeah, I get you. Fair enough. Okay, well I can change that. I'll have to find another way of like balancing it because I don't really have a mounting thing for the dish, but I can certainly change the convex lens, concave lens, so that I can focus it.
Yeah, I'm just
But to be
saying.
honest,
Yeah, I'm not trying to dissuade you from doing anything. I'm not trying to debunk what you did. I'm just saying that you've introduced variables that don't need to be introduced because they skew results.
well, you claim I've introduced variables. I don't agree because it was absolutely freezing, Sean. There's no heat being radiated out of this plastic handle. It's cold.
Well, no, that's the problem. Your handle is actually storing heat from from the top of your ice cream scoop. The metal is actually conducting the heat down into the plastic, and it's causing a convection current because your thermometer is so close. It's got a breeze going across it that has nothing to do with the actual wind.
I know, but Sean, it's only 7 degrees. I mean, it's not much above freezing, right? There's not a lot of heat there for it to be storing. If this was summer and it was like 17 degrees that night, maybe you'd have a point, but I don't think you do when it's just above freezing. I don't mind changing it. I'll change the ice cream scoop for a deeper dish, convex or a concave, reflective material. I'm sure I can find something. And I mean, I saw this as a pilot test to see what I could see if it indicated that it was worth repeating. If there was no change whatsoever in the results and it didn't support the Assertion at all, I'd just say. But what I found for me personally is that as the control dropped, then rose, then dropped, I can see that my parabolic dropped significantly, but then rose, but then carried on rising. But I think that's because of the cloud cover. And obviously the one that created the shade, that did seem to get warmer. But it was patchy cloud and I didn't really get good conditions. So I'm going to have to keep trying it on different nights when the weather's better because it was too patchy for me at the minute. And we've had rubbish weather here for the last week and it's been the ideal time, but it's been wet. So I've always had a lot of cloud cover, so I've not really had a chance. But for me personally, I'm happy to try it again and see what happens. But if your conclusion is that if your conclusion is that Moonlight is not cooling based on your observations, I don't agree. It does seem to be cooling, and I'll get better results to support my assertions with more certainty. But I don't agree that the Moonlight's not cooling. It does seem to be cooling because I can seem to manipulate it and I can seem to cause fluctuations that are consistent with the parabolica going cooler and the shade being created, which seems to be warmer. So, I mean, I guess I'm pretty much done for that point.
Well, let me just reiterate again. I want you to do this test again without having the variable of that ice cream scoop being right on top of your thermometer. Because I've got every single test I've done, which has actually been several of them, have pointed to the fact that the Moonlight is not cold. But you've got one test where you acknowledge that there may be an issue with the proximity of that ice cream scoop that might be skewing your results. So don't make an assertion until you actually remove all of your variables.
But the key word I used was the word indicate. It does indicate because look, you can see that the top line, which is the shade, is warmer, and it is consistently warmer throughout the whole test. It should have gone down and stayed down, but when I put the thing in front of it, it did rise and it stayed warmer. So is that indicative that it is warmer? Yeah, in the shade, it does indicate that it's warmer. Is it reliable? No, because it was patchy cloud and I can't rely on it at this point. But when you conclude by saying that it's definitely no difference in the thing, or it's warmer in the direct moonlight, I'm going to say that's not my experience. It's not consistent with my data, but I am prepared to go and do it again.
Let's discuss your
don't
shade
mind
device for a
rejoining in a
second.
month.
Let's discuss for a second. It's a can of WD-40, correct?
Say again, Sean?
Your shade creating device was a can of WD-40, correct?
Sure. I mean, it could
And
be anything. That would
well,
you like me to change that to something different?
actually I would, but I'd like to explain why. Because going by the fact that you have the plastic nozzle still attached to the side of the can, I'm guessing it's a full can, correct?
I don't know. No, I don't think it's full, but go on.
Well, it's a solid thing filled with liquid. While yes, it's true when you spray it, the can becomes cold. But if you're not spraying it, it's going to be whatever temperature you took it out of from the room, unless you've let it sit out for several hours to get back to the air temperature outside. So it will have a heat radiating effect for the simple fact that it's got a liquid that's retaining some heat. And again,
Get out of it.
really,
There's a remoteness to your argument, though. I mean, that thing's freezing cold. It was that cold I couldn't hold it, Sean. So I don't think there's much heat being radiated out of it when it's that cold you can't hold it. So perhaps you might be right, but I don't think you've got any evidence to support radiation of that thing. At 7 degrees, I can't prove that it's not, but
See,
it's for you to prove that there is heat radiating from it.
the point is, it is a container filled with a fluid, which means that any heat will be retained and slowly bled off. And if you're using that thing close to the thermometer, it will bleed directly to the thermometer. Even if it's only 1 degree hotter than the outside air, you're going to claim that's because it's shade, and it's not.
So you say, but how would you suggest that I change this to make it better so that we don't have this argument in future?
I would actually set up your board, because it looks like you got that mounted on some kind of a, it looks just like like a wood seat, correct? Or some kind of...
Yeah, it's like a small picnic table.
Okay, here's my suggestion for you. Find yourself a piece of cardboard. Place those mounts as far back on the table as possible, and then have 1/3 of that front of it covered with cardboard vertically, so it actually makes a shadow across 1/3 of the board as you point it to the moon. That way you remove any possibility of that influencing the thermometer of one side. I'm trying to help you control variables.
Then I'm going to get the heat radiated from the wall that would be behind it, right?
Well, you want to do this out in the open away from walls to begin with, because you don't want that to influence your results either. You want to remove variables, not add more.
Sure.
I mean, you go on and on and on about the scientific method. You want to nail it down to one independent variable, but you have, with your setup, you have, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I can count 3 independent variables that you're not isolating.
No, well, you're claiming that I'm not isolating them. You're claiming that these are potential variables that I don't agree with, because I don't agree that the heat that's radiated from the WD-40 can would be anywhere near heat. It's freezing, Sean.
Again, it's got to be, even with a 1 degree difference, it's going to show on your thermometers, and you're going to skew that as a positive result, and it's not necessarily a positive result. That's why I'm saying change your variables around, try to eliminate them as variables, so you are only left with Moonlight being a cause.
So what if, rather than casting a shadow, what if I got like a kitchen roll tube, the cardboard insert for the kitchen roll, and just sleeved the shade one so that it was like...
Then you're introducing an insulative property. You want to keep it to light only as your cause.
So you're saying that, like... I'm just thinking, practically speaking, whatever I cast a shadow with... You're saying keep it as far away as possible.
Yes.
But then if I keep it... But isn't there going to be like an element of refraction of convection heat where it bends round and warms it up if I go too far away? Because I'm sure refraction is always going to come into this at some point.
Not really. This isn't light over a long distance. Refraction. Yeah, refraction is not going to be a part of this. This is strictly...
like Ben's magic.
And you're trying to make a straw man here. No, I've told you, refraction will not be a part of this experiment.
I'm not trying to make a straw man. I'm trying to reduce the arguments against me if I make the changes that you say, so that if I make the changes you say, you then can't say that they're inadequate.
Well, that's why this is where get different opinions, because I'm actually saying what I will accept that actually removes all possible variables, and I've told you what I will accept to remove all the possible variables. Now you're saying I'm not going to accept them. Yes, I am. I've said what it would take to remove the variables. There is no argument there.
I'm prepared to do it. I just don't want you to change the goalposts on me when you say, "Well, I said do this and you didn't do it the way I said." I don't mind putting a bigger bowl behind it that's convex with a chrome reflection on it for my parabolica, and I don't mind creating a physical wall in front of it to cause a shadow the way you said. I don't mind doing any of that. I don't want it to change when I've done it.
Just make sure that there's enough distance to where they cannot influence the results. Is the big thing. You don't want things close that can actually influence results. That's introducing variables.
Well, okay, but I'm sure that you'll still say I'm introducing variables however I do it.
So well, no, if you use a parabola,
remoteness point.
Instead of the ice cream scoop, if you use a parabola that puts the mirror or whatever reflective device you're using to focus the light, 2 to 3 feet away, it's not likely to be a variable that's going to be because of the material or the actual device. It's strictly going to be down to light at that point. With your shadow device, same thing.
Sean, for me to put it 2 to 3 feet away, the size of the parabolic is going to have to be massive, isn't it?
No, because in my test, I used an 8-inch makeup mirror that was a 3 times zoom, which means I was 2.5 to 3 feet away to get that focal point of the moon to be magnified. It had no influence directly on the target.
I'll try. I just don't want there to be an argument of remoteness when I do it, and it's not to your satisfaction, because that's where we'll just have this bitch fest where we argue over how remote your point is, and I'll say, well, I've done what you asked, and now you're changing it, and you're going to say, no, you didn't do what I asked because you haven't done it far enough. And
I'm trying to help you here, Anthony. I'm actually going to give you some things to actually try. Do you have a Walmart nearby?
That's fine. I don't mind you criticizing to help me. That's fine. But I don't want you to change your position later on and say, well, you didn't do what you said. Because
that's why I'm offering you advice. If I'm offering you advice on how to do it, why would I say that's not good enough? That would be incredibly hypocritical.
Disingenuous would be the phrase I would use.
Well, that too. I'm giving you the parameters I'm looking for you to use so you can actually remove all these variables. Why would I back out on them and say, oh, well, that just wasn't good enough? Because I'm the one setting the variables.
We both know the answer to that, Sean.
So you're literally trying to say that I'm giving you these variables and I'm going to back out on them. Who's being disingenuous here?
I think that you will change the goalposts on me. If I do what you asked me to do and then I do it, you'll say you didn't do it proper.
And that's where you're wrong.
Well, but anyways, let's see. I mean,
like I said, go to your local Walmart, get yourself a 3x magnifying mirror. It's 8 inches in diameter. And then you'll be able to set it between 2.5 to 3 feet away from your target. Focus it on it. Your your actual focal point will be about 1/2 of an inch round.
Yeah, but I don't think that's reflecting enough light back, because that's going to be a small corridor of light that's being reflected back. I prefer the parabolica that I presented, because
a parabolica does the same. A parabolic mirror does the same thing. It makes a focal point of all absorbed or of all reflected light.
Yeah, but it's a much bigger focal point, isn't it? It's not a focal point. It's a much bigger reflection because it's concave, not just mirrored.
That's what a parabola does. It focuses to one specific point. As long as you're at that point. Yeah, I'm talking about a mirror. That's the whole point of a parabolic mirror, is to focus the light into one spot. It's literally the same thing as using a magnifying glass, but instead of you're passing through to a target, it's reflecting back to a target.
Are you talking about what women use for makeup?
Yes. It's a simple parabolic mirror. That's all you need.
Okay, I'll see what I can find.
It might cost you. It might cost you between 8 and 10 pounds.
What?
It might cost you between 8 and 10 pounds at most.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, to be honest, I'm not familiar with putting makeup on. It's not one of my areas of expertise, but I don't mind because I'm not familiar with this product. For me, I would be looking at a salad bowl that's chrome plated.
Yeah, here's the problem.
That's not good enough.
Here's the problem why I tried to steer you away from a salad bowl, because the focal point will be at the lip of the bowl. It's the same plane as the top of the bowl. You want to be as far away with your reflecting device as possible to not introduce variables. So a parabolic mirror will do the same thing, but it won't be close enough to influence the results.
Okay, I'll see what I can do, and I don't mind reconvening in a few weeks. Well, it's going to have to be a month, isn't it?
It's going to be about 3 weeks, yeah, because that's our next full moon is about 3 weeks away.
Sure, that's fine. I mean, we're still at pretty much full moon now. I know it's not far off full moon. I saw it before when it was in between the clouds.
I think tonight should be a half moon.
I'm going to butt in here for a sec so that we can ask some questions from the chat, if that's okay with both of you.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so this one from Robert Adset. He asks to Anthony, what is the sensor error of your thermometers?
I have no idea.
All right, I find that to be a problem, but whatever. Cheshire asks to you, Anthony, do you honestly think a thermal imaging camera is not a reliable source to measure temperature?
They've got a focal range, haven't they? They have to be within a certain proximity, and I don't know what the proximity of that one is. I think I did look it up, and I can't remember what it is. But when you're looking at something that's supposed to,
anything less than 1,800 feet.
yeah, well, the moon's like 237,000 miles, right?
It can still pick it up. It just can't give an accurate temperature at more than 1,800 feet.
Yeah, but when you're looking at a theodolite, they've got a range of what is it, about 500 yards
And
or whatever?
and total non sequitur.
It's not non sequitur. It's pointing out that the distance is important, and we're working outside the parameters of the working range between the light that thing that you're using.
And I'd like to point out that I'm not measuring the temperature of the moon. I'm measuring the temperature of the target that the moonlight is hitting from less than 1,800 feet away.
By the way, a theodolite is different. A theodolite doesn't measure temperature.
No, I know, but it's still got a working range that requires it to be within a certain distance. Otherwise, it becomes inaccurate because of internal refraction within the lens itself.
Sean, how far away were you from the surfaces that you were filming with that camera?
From the walls, I was about 5 to 6 feet. From my handheld targets, I was less than 3.
All right, so from that distance, Anthony, do you think that a thermal imaging camera is not a reliable source when measuring the temperatures of those objects that are, again, only 5 to 6 feet away?
I don't know, because we're talking very small changes in the temperature, so I don't know how accurate they are, and I don't know whether they are reliable or not.
Well, since you don't know the error of your thermometers, you don't know how accurate you are in the same breath, right?
Well, I know I think when I read the instructions on it, I think it was plus or minus 0.5 of 1 degree. But don't quote me on that. I'm doing that purely from memory, and I can't remember it. But the way I see it is that my thermometers are relative to each other. So even if they're not accurate...
Let me go ahead and share something here to show you how accurate this thermal imaging camera is.
Well, if you're going to do that, then I'm going to ask you for a calibration certificate to show that it's within range.
I think that's a certificate that comes from the manufacturer.
And is it within the duration of the time period? What is it, 3 months, 6 months?
Okay.
The problem you've got, Sean, is you've only got the one camera.
Just
and
a second.
Got more data points. I mean, really, you should do it over like 10 minutes, like I did, or 20 minutes, or 40 minutes, or whatever.
Well,
so that you've
let's show how quick this thermal imaging camera picks up and how sensitive it is. So let's go ahead and watch this video where I actually use a laser pointer to heat up one little tiny spot. Go ahead and play it. So that's my mouse actually, and that's me pointing the laser at it. Instantaneously, it picks up one spot of heat.
Sure. But how do you know that the 4 degrees change that's claimed is actually 4 degrees change in real world?
Are you actually serious here? And hear me actually doing it on the target of that board that I use for my target for all the cold tests.
Of course I'm serious. How do you know that the red spot that's put on the board is actually 4 degrees warmer where the red spot is? What else did you use to prove that it was 4?
Actually, I would just butt in here for a second. That's talking about something different. Sean Hufford is measuring a temperature change, not the actual temperature. So right. Let's hypothetically say that the temperature is actually skewed a little bit colder or a little bit warmer than what it is in reality. The fact that there was a temperature change is what Sean is trying to film, and that is what he gathered, is it not?
I understand, but my point is that the claim is that it's a 4 degree change in temperature. And my question is, well, without the control of something else to measure it to, how do you know that that is actually 4 degrees? Because if you had another one next to it and it was 4, then I would agree. If you had another one next to it and it didn't show it, then maybe not.
That's a non sequitur. Any change whatsoever, the amount of change is irrelevant. The point is that there is a change. How much of a change is a different question. So if Sean Hufford were to look at the shaded portion and there was a change from the lit portion, the moonlit portion, then you can use that to find out if it's answering a simple question. Is it hotter or colder? By how much is a totally different question. Would you agree?
Let me address your claim that it was a non sequitur. Can you explain why it's non sequitur when I'm pointing out that you haven't got a control to measure it against?
Let me put this in terms you'll understand. Hold on, Red. Let me actually address this in terms he will understand. You said let's go back to your density thing, because it's not density, it's the relative density difference. I'm not measuring exact temperatures. I'm looking for temperature differences from the spot that's being lit up versus spots that aren't. And there's no
Yes.
difference at all.
Now,
Sure.
now keep in mind that a non sequitur is when the previous statement or conclusion doesn't follow from the statement or conclusion that was just said. All right. The statement or
Yeah.
conclusion doesn't follow from the previous statement or conclusion that was said. All right. What Sean has said is that there is a difference. You ask, well, how do we know the amount of difference is correct? That's not what Sean said. Sean just said there is a difference, point blank. How much is a different question that was different than what he asked, i.e., does not follow, i.e., it is a non sequitur. Understand?
No, because you haven't got a way of determining whether or not the change is caused by what you're doing, because you haven't got a control to demonstrate that the other
with a
one is
laser
doing the same
pointer.
thing.
I had a
with a
laser
fucking
pointer.
laser pointer.
It was a laser pointer being pointed at a target and watching it heat up in real time due to the laser shining on that one point.
Yeah, but really, when you say it's a non sequitur, my point is that you haven't got something else to show the same result from a control, then I would say that that's not non sequitur, it's a fair point.
No,
You need to
that's
demonstrate
not.
that you'd have to have two of them showing the same result. Otherwise, you don't know that the thing that you're measuring is actually what you are measuring.
Well,
You're
that's the thing.
perceiving
Did
it.
you watch the video? Because I actually pointed it at the mouse, hit it with a laser, watched the spot heat up, and then I moved over to the board, hit that with a laser, and watched that heat up as well. So right there's your 2 points of data. Both times it showed one spot heating up.
So
Interesting.
would you be able to play the part of the video where you show the manipulation of the moonlight, where you say that it was colder in the direct, warmer in the direct moonlight? I'd like to see that bit if you could.
Let me pull that video up.
Because I want to see what the manipulation was that makes you come to that conclusion, so I can see for myself why you come to that conclusion.
Well, the manipulation was actually going straight from a moonlit side that's been in the moonlight for a solid 2 hours to a side that had no moonlight for 2 hours. And the temperature was actually colder in the non-moonlit side.
Yeah, but would you agree, though, that you're not manipulating the presumed cause there? You're correlating what you perceive as the effect based on your interpretation or your perception.
Well,
that it's
my
going in the
my
shade there,
presumed
and that's
my
the one
presumed
cause.
cause my presumed cause is moonlight being a cold inducing effect.
Yeah, but you haven't manipulated it to prove a cause and effect
Well, no,
relationship.
I didn't
You
have to. That's the
correlated.
nice thing. Nature did that for me because of the orientation of the building.
Yeah, but
One
you know that
one
nature
wall
can't be a cause because
one
hang on,
wall
unless
had
you create.
moonlight for 2 hours. The other wall had moonlight for 0 hours. The side that had
Right.
no moonlight for 0 hours was 2 degrees colder.
Right. Well, you know, when you criticized me and I listened to what you said and then I accepted what you said, my criticism is that you haven't directly manipulated your presumed cause, which would be direct over indirect moonlight. What you need to do is cast a shadow and show that with your real time thermometer reading thing, that it actually does cause a
Again,
change in temperature that is consistent with your claim that the direct moonlight is warmer than the shade.
Mother Nature took care of that for me. There
No,
was
that's not
no
scientific
moonlight
method.
on the one wall that was colder.
No, Sean, do you agree that the independent variable must be manipulated by the observer?
Not always. Nature can do that by itself
No,
too.
No, it can't. That's correlative, not causative.
no, it can be. It can be causative as well.
It can't be. You have to manipulate it personally. You
No,
can't just let
no,
it
you don't
do it.
have to. You do
Yeah,
not
you do.
have to. That is absolutely 100% wrong.
Okay. Bear with me. Do you want to stop screen sharing, Sean?
Stop screen sharing.
You seem to be. Bear with me.
Sean, quick question.
Yes.
If you were to put a board in front of your thermal imaging camera, you would be casting a shadow on the thermal imaging camera, correct?
Yes.
If you were to stand in front of a building that is blocking that light, you would be casting an image on the camera, right?
If there was a board between me and the camera, no.
No. Here's what I'm saying. If you are in a field and all you have blocking moonlight is that board, you are casting a shadow on the camera, correct?
Yes.
If you are standing next to a building that is also blocking that moonlight, you are casting a shadow on that camera, correct?
Yes.
Okay, are you casting a shadow in both of those instances?
Why, yes.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yep.
So Reds doesn't believe that, and Sean doesn't believe that you need to manipulate your independent variable personally. You believe that you can let nature do it for you. I'm going to present you 10 citations like I did to a guy called John Watson, and he wouldn't back down. And on this point, you need to back down because it's clear
Do
that
you
there is
really want to
no.
go through these when you get to Penn State? Please say you will.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do this. So your claim is that you can allow nature to take its toll. My claim is you have to independently manipulate it yourself to prove cause and effect. Otherwise, you're correlating. So let's do this. There's 10 citations. Independent variable is the variable
Tony,
the experimenter deliberately manipulates, Reds.
Riley, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Between you holding a board and casting a shadow on the camera and you standing in front of a building that's casting a shadow on the camera, are both of those cameras cast in shadow? Yes or no?
Right. You know when he put the red
Are
camera,
both of those cameras cast in shadow? Yes or no?
it's a non sequitur. The
Are
point is
both
whether
of those
you call
cameras cast in shadow? Yes or no?
I'm not answering that question. You need to be
Because you
addressing.
know it debunks your bullshit, so we can move on.
No, it doesn't debunk my bullshit. Why
Yes,
is it that when you use the laser pen, you demonstrated a direct causative effect by using the laser pen and claiming that it directly warmed up right by 4 degrees? I said, well, maybe there wasn't.
You can do the exact same thing by simply going inside and doing a thermal imaging of the ground and then going outside in the sunshine in Florida.
No, you can't. No, you can't. That's correlative.
That is
No,
literally you going outside, and the only thing changing is the amount of sunlight that's hitting the ground.
not the fact that you've gone outside.
Yes, it is. Because guess what? Outside has sun, inside doesn't. It has a roof.
Yeah, but you've changed this. You've changed the fact that you're inside to the fact that you're now outside. That's not acceptable. You need to independently manipulate it yourself.
No, you don't. You don't have to.
Yeah. So, right, answer me this then. Why is it that you claim 4 degrees temperature change with the laser pen and that was acceptable? But when I'm asking you to do the same with shade to prove cause and effect, that's suddenly not acceptable.
Because both of them are achieving the same thing, dude. If your goal
No.
is to capture the temperature probe in shadow, it doesn't matter what is casting the shadow. The point is that it needs to be in shadow in the first place. What is casting the shadow does not invalidate your observation or experiment.
No, but you have to manipulate the shadow to prove cause and effect because otherwise you're correlating.
No, you don't. All you have to do is go out to a portion of the street that is actually having moonlight cast on it, and then do another observation on a portion of the street that doesn't have moonlight cast on it, and see if there's any difference. That's exactly.
No, you have to create the shadow yourself. You know, the same way that he did with the laser pen, and he got 4 degrees warmth. We want to see the cause of the shade causing a direct cause on that temperature, where the shade gets cooler.
That's neat, and all, Riley.
Direct moonlight is. Hang on. Stop interrupting. Let me finish.
Let me use your own sources.
No. Let me finish. Sean's claim is that the moonlight is warmer than the shade. So what I want to see is Sean putting the moonlight on the probe or whatever it is he's measuring, and then casting a shadow and showing that the shadow's colder than the direct moonlight. And Sean's got to manipulate it himself. That's the requirement.
No, it's not. From the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, it says independent variable is a variable that is varied or manipulated by the reserve. Oh wait, hang on. Let me slow that part down. Nice and slow.
Yeah, slow it down. Say it slowly so that the audience can hear it.
Yes, independent variable is a variable that is varied or manipulated by the researcher. Notice the use of the word "or" and not the word "and."
Yeah, varied. But yeah, so what? I don't see the problem. What's the problem?
So that means it just needs to be varied. It doesn't matter what is doing the varying, so long as you're able to vary it or find something that's doing the varying for you, it is varied. Is it? It says, if I cast a shadow by a board, that is nothing different than casting a shadow by a building. Both probes are in shade.
Let's say it again slowly for the audience, Reds, because you don't seem to be comprehending what's being said.
Let's go ahead and do that. Independent variable is the variable that is varied or, not and, or, one more time, or, not and, one more time, just because I love it so much. Varied or, not and, actually one more time, varied or, not and, manipulated by the researcher. Do I need to repeat it a few more times, or are you still not getting it?
Yeah, but focus on the by the researcher bit, because that's the bit you're ignoring.
Yeah, it's right after the word "and" that is not there, right?
No, it's not the word or. That's not the problem.
No,
I
no,
agree.
it's right there. You're screen sharing it. I'm seeing the word or there. Are we seeing a word or after the word varied? How about you read it slowly? Tell me if there's
What you're doing.
or and in there.
See, what you're doing now is you're getting triggered because I'm agreeing with you that varied or manipulated is fine. The bit you don't want to point out is the by the researcher bit.
No,
You
no,
can't
no.
correlate it
Anthony,
with-
you
No,
said
no,
that it has to be
guys,
manipulated by the
I'm-
researcher. Varied is not a direct manipulation. That can be any kind of variation does not have to be done by the researcher as a manipulation of the independent variable. Passage of time is a perfect example of that.
Or manipulated by the researcher.
No, varied or manipulated by the researcher. It is or, not the word and. An independent variable is a variable that stands alone
Okay.
and isn't changed
Okay.
by any other variables that you are trying to measure. It doesn't matter what you're casting that shadow, dude. It's the fact that it's cast in shadow to begin with. That is the only thing we fucking care
No,
about.
you've got to cause it by manipulating it. And if you don't agree with the phraseology of this one, let's see whether overall the overall story from all of the
So
citations.
you're literally saying that a shadow cast by a person is different than a shadow cast by a tree or a building. Is that
I'm
what
saying that
literally
you've got to
telling me
cast.
right
I'm saying that when you put the red spot on the dot on the wall and you claimed the 4 degrees, and I said, yeah, but there's not really a control there to prove that, is there? Right?
I'm
You
literally
claim that as a.
asking you. I'm literally
Don't
asking you.
come
the
on, Reds,
shadow
don't
equal
interrupt.
Shadow. I'm literally asking you the shadow equals shadow here. But apparently the shadows are different according to you. How? Please explain that to me.
I'm trying to, but you keep interrupting.
Oh,
Well, if you claim that the laser pen caused a 4-degree increase in the temperature, I want to see the same thing being done to cast the shadow by proving that when you cast the shadow by causing a summit, whatever, that it goes up because or down in your case, because you said that the direct moonlight was warmer than the shade. Well, I want you to demonstrate that by proving, by causing a shadow yourself, and then demonstrating it with your thing, and that's the same standard but in reverse.
Well, keep in mind, Anthony, that 2 degree difference I picked up with the shade side being colder was over a 2 hour period. It's not going to be something you're going to spot instantly.
But that's not what you said before. Get that video back up. Let's see what you did.
It absolutely is. The moon has been shining on the west side of the building for 2 hours when I took that video.
Yeah,
During the entire night, it never once shone on the north side of the building. And there was only a 2 degree difference, with the moon side being warmer.
Sean, can you please present the video with the laser pen that you demonstrated before, please?
Which has nothing to do with the Moonlight one.
It does, because you're demonstrating a direct cause and effect relationship, right? I want to see that, and I want to see what happens with your camera when you put the laser on.
You see an immediate temperature increase in one specific
spot. You
spot.
manipulated that by putting the laser on it. So what I want you to do in reverse to support your claim that the direct moonlight is actually warmer than the shade, I want you to cast a shadow and show what happens when you've cast the shadow and see and support it with your probe, because that will show the effect that you claim is there.
And again, the shaded side of the building that had no moonlight at all for 2 hours.
I don't care. That's correlative, Sean.
But you're asking for shade. I'm giving you shade for 2 hours.
No, I'm asking you for shade that you manipulate yourself.
It's still shade.
It's not shade you've manipulated yourself.
It's still shade, though. And you wonder
but
why
it's correlative.
Top running for dumb fuck of the year because you're making
So just answer me this, Riley. Just answer me this. No matter how correlative it is, why is the moonlight side of the building warmer than the shaded side when the claim is moonlight makes things cold?
Who cares? It's outside of scientific.
Now you don't care because it shits on your claim?
No, it's outside of scientific method because you're not manipulating it yourself.
No, it isn't. It is.
Right.
That is
Sean,
exactly science.
Sean, get your camera, get your red laser pen bit on screen, please.
I don't have a red laser pen, thank you very much.
Well, green laser pen or whatever color it was, just that bit of the video that we were talking about before. Can you please present it to the audience, please?
And again, you're not dealing with the cold moonlight claim.
I know, but what I'm demonstrating to this audience is that you've used a direct cause and effect relationship, and you're happy to claim that. But then when I ask for you to do it with shade to support your assertion that moonlight is actually warmer than the shade,
okay. Here's where you're misconflating.
And you cut me off. You cut me off at the point when I'm making the crescendo of my points. Why do you keep doing that?
Make it, and then I'll counter it. Go ahead.
So when you've put your laser pen, which you're still not presenting to the audience for the benefit of the audience, which is a bit slimy, but you're not.
Oh no.
Put your laser pen. When you've put your laser pen on the backboard and then you've demonstrated what you claimed was a 4, now down to 2 degrees change, I'm saying that you need to do the same with the shade, because that's proven a cause and effect relationship. You can't correlate. You have to cause.
All right,
Are you done with your crescendo now?
Yeah,
Okay.
Present your video, though.
Again, the laser, the whole point I did that video was to show that the camera is sensitive enough to pick up small, really, really tiny area temperature changes, which was the whole point. No, don't you interrupt me. Don't you play that fucking game. So, the reason I did that is to show that if there would be any temperature change at all due to magnifying moonlight, which would concentrate it and make things cool off faster, it would show up in my results. It did not show any temperature difference, which was the whole point of the whole cold moonlight thing that your initial test was supposed to do. But then I post my video showing that IR light doesn't go through magnifying glasses. You changed your entire setup. Yeah, you claim you didn't watch my videos on that one since your entire setup changed after I released those.
Well, actually, again, you're correlating rather than demonstrating cause, because I watched Astronomy Live's video. I didn't watch anything. Hang on. I didn't watch anything of yours, Sean. I watched Astronomy Live's where he explained why. I accepted what he demonstrated and I changed my test accordingly. Believe it or not, Sean, I didn't watch anything of yours, but my point remains valid. You guys are claiming that the temperature change by 4 degrees with the laser pen is cause and effect, right? And I question the accuracy of it, which is a legitimate, but, you know, I'll give way on it for the purposes of this bit. I want you to demonstrate the cause and effect relationship by doing the same thing but casting a shadow and then demonstrating that the shadow is actually colder than the bit that's receiving the direct moonlight.
Already done.
That's your claim.
Already done. The building did it for me. The building had 2 hours plus of shade and 2 hours of moon on each side. That is already done for you, Anthony. If moonlight was colder, then the shaded side would show a hotter temperature. That is the exact opposite of what actually happened in reality.
Sean, you're correlating. You're not causing. You need to cause a shade.
That is causing. The building
is not. It's correlating.
No, the building.
So you guys deny scientific method that requires that you manipulate the independent.
We're simply explaining it to you because apparently you don't understand.
No, don't explain it.
The building caused its own shade on one face.
That's exactly what we did. That's exactly what you can't say. You can't tell us to apply scientific method when we've applied scientific method already.
You haven't. You've correlated. You need to cause.
That is cause.
It isn't. It's correlative. You haven't manipulated it. Right. So tell me how. Tell me, Reds.
Does the building cause shade?
Right,
does
Sean,
the building cause shade?
Sean, can you please present?
Cause shade?
Sean, can you please present your laser part of the video, please?
Cause shade. Let's ask the audience. Let's see if they're smarter than you are. Does the building cause shade? Yes or no, audience?
Right, guys, you either present the laser video, like I've asked 3 times, or that's the end of the conversation.
Again, the laser video has nothing to do with cold moonlight. I use that as an example of how sensitive the camera is.
Yeah, and I want to see that sensitivity being created when you cause a shade.
And the building is causing shade, does it not?
No, that's correlating a shade.
Does the building cause shade?
Right, it's correlating.
Does
I want Sean to show it.
Oh, okay. So
in that case, then you can't. In that case, I don't have to accept your laser caused anything. Then.
Okay, so everyone in the audience seems to agree that yes, buildings can cause shade. So they're smarter than you are already. So, which again isn't saying much. But
it's not the question.
Let's see if you can actually figure this out. Does the building cause shade?
Listen, I'm asking you to provide the scientific method.
If it is a bright sunny day and
more
there's a
video.
building, does that building have a shadow?
It's irrelevant. You're correlating. I want you to cause.
Does the building cause shade?
Right, Sean, why haven't you put your laser picture on, your laser video on screen?
Does the building cause shade? Maybe the reason why I'm going to go ahead and take the blame for that. Sean, do not present any other video until he answers this very simple question. Does a building cause shade?
Then this conversation is over because of you two.
Peace out. Bye-bye. Peace out.
Oh, I didn't say I was leaving. I just said this conversation is over.
Good. Then we're
I'm happy to point out to the audience time and time again that you guys will not cause and you will correlate instead. And now I'm being rumbled because you guys don't like the audience
if you want this conversation to be over
with scientific method. Isn't it ridiculous that you guys that claim all the science in the world
just a second, guys,
with scientific method, can you? You won't accept that the independent variable must be manipulated
You want to
Does the
correlate
building
instead.
Well, just a
Because you guys
second.
push
Does the
pseudoscience,
building
and
cause
Sean won't do it, will
on
he?
a stunning
Sean won't cause it
Sunday?
because it won't
Does the
support his
building
claim.
cause
Sean's the
shade?
liar. He's
Does the
disinfo,
building
isn't he?
cause
He's deceiving
shade?
the audience.
Does the building cause the shade?
Are you
That
guys done
Apply the
yet?
Riley
scientific
doesn't
method and
want to
prove
answer.
cause and
Does
effect.
the building cause shade?
Are you guys done yet?
Prove cause and
Cause
effect.
shade?
If
Cause
it,
and effect.
just a
Cause
second,
Red
guys.
shade?
Stop.
doesn't do
Does the
cause
Stop,
and
guys.
effect. Red
Stop.
rhetoric does correlations only.
Cause
Sean supports it because he doesn't
Mute 'em
do
both.
correlative. He only does correlative effects.
Okay, now that you're both muted because neither of you will shut the hell up, let's ask Anthony one thing since he wants to change topics here. Earlier today, you held a live stream where you say, if I'm ever wrong, I'll fess up to it. It has been over 2 years. Have you actually gone out and tested seeing stars through a solar filter yet? Have you admitted to be right or wrong on that?
I haven't
what?
got a solar filter. But you realise
So-
that
so-
the sun's a star technically, right?
Did you lie then? Because you said you could go out and do that anytime. You've got a solar filter, you've got cameras.
Well, you know I
It's
didn't
been 2
lie because
years.
I presented evidence that supported the assertion, right? So that by default makes
And
it not a lie.
we've gone and asked you to go out and show us
This is
stars
what's
through a
called-
solar
this
filter.
is what's called a segue because you know that Reds is
You're the
being
one
destroyed
that
right
you
now,
are
and
the
you
one
need
that
to get
said you
off that
wanted to change the
topic.
topic. You said this conversation was over.
Sean,
I'm
whilst
shifting
we're
the
here,
conversation.
Sean, whilst we're here, Sean, did you ever find that hangout that you claimed that you'd find?
No need to.
Yeah, of course there was. It was fraudly in the background, wasn't it? And it wasn't on my mic.
Well, sorry to say it, but Geo's mic was not capable of transmitting above 9 kilohertz, and
So
every
you
bit of
claim,
the
but
audio was
Audacity
above
didn't
9
show
kilohertz.
that, did it? Anyway, the bottom line is this. I'm asking Sean, so let's not talk to Reds for a minute. I'm talking to you. You gave me some fair criticism and I'm prepared to go ahead with them. I want you to do something for me, and I want you to cause a shadow being cast, and I want you to demonstrate with your laser that it does indeed cause what did you say? Direct moonlight was warmer than the shade. I want you to prove that by causing a cast shadow. Will you do that for me, yes or no?
Sean,
Well, if
before you answer that
I can
question-
record for 2
No,
hours
it's not
straight,
Sean.
Hang on. Before Sean answers that question, I would like to ask the audience a question. Does a building cause shade? Thank you,
Who
please.
cares? You have to do it yourself.
No, you don't. Shade is shade, dumbass. And now
No,
that
you have to manipulate it yourself.
well,
can't
are
actually,
in the running
let
for
me
dumb fucks
let me
here
load up a
because
video
shade
here.
was shade,
Let me load up a video
dumbass.
because I'd really like to get Anthony's say on this. That's the one I want to have shared.
Well, I'm
So-
hoping it's going to be the laser pen one.
Oh, no. This is the first time I took the thermal camera out to begin with. This is my very first thermal camera video.
Yeah, I noticed that you don't want to pull the laser one up, Sean.
No, just pay
Why
attention.
won't you do that, by the way?
Just
why won't you
listen
bring it
for a
up?
second, Anthony, because I want you to answer this really, really honestly here. So I got this on split screen view, where you have the actual visual on the left, the thermal camera on the right, and I'm looking at the moon there. Now they're different zoom levels, so they look at different sizes. But then I go over to this playground, and this is my first cold moonlight test. And so I go to the playground, and I notice that all of the things underneath the picnic tables, the tire swings, on the ground is warmer than the open areas. Now, when I get there, I'm going to have this paused so you can actually make your prediction on is the moonlight causing this effect or not. I want your honest answer on this. So we're almost there. Just a second. You can actually start to see the warmth underneath one of the picnic tables, but I want to get over to it so you can see the top is incredibly cold while underneath it is really warm comparatively. So bear with
No,
me.
I would immediately argue that the table is casting a shadow, and it's bound to be warmer underneath because it's not in direct moonlight.
Okay, so you're still saying that this is caused by moonlight, correct?
The casting of the shadow.
Okay, so you're saying that the shadow is warmer at this point, right?
Well, hang on. Is that rubber? Is that like black rubber underneath?
No, it's sand, actually.
So what's the question? Are you saying why is the
Pause it.
sand warmer?
Pause it. So are you at this point saying that the moonlight is causing underneath the picnic table because it's in shade to be warmer?
No, I'm saying that the surface of the table is going to be cooler because it's exposed to direct moonlight.
Okay, thank you. Now watch this. Because when I shot this, the moon wasn't hitting the playground at all. It was behind a building. It was still rising. Which is why I had to go walk around the building to actually capture the moon.
Well, this is the reason why you have to manipulate your presumed cause, because otherwise we're correlating. And if you're just demonstrating that I've correlated incorrectly, then I would say, well, you need to manipulate the presumed cause, which again supports my assertion that you need to cast the shadow.
Yeah, the moon is still behind those buildings. It hasn't touched the playground yet. And so we're seeing these quote unquote shaded areas that are hotter having nothing to do with the moonlight.
Which is why we have to manipulate the presumed cause to prove a cause and effect relationship, something that Red seems to be very reluctant to do, yet I'm the one that's considered to be done for the year.
Does the building cause shade? I haven't gotten an answer to that question yet.
Of course it does, but it's correlative.
Oh, it does. So
Oh, it does. Yes, but it's correlative. You're ignoring that, Reds. It's correlative.
The building is causing a shade, which you agreed with. So there's a cause there. Very
No,
good.
it's correlative, not causative.
Smarter than you were
Reds.
10 minutes ago. I'm proud of you, dude. Maybe you
Hey,
are
Reds.
a dumb fuck after all.
Reds, I don't think you understand the difference between correlative and causative. Could
Then
perhaps
don't
you
answer
explain?
yes to a question that pertains to causes, you dumb fuck. You undermine your own point.
I don't. Can you explain the difference between? Can you explain the difference between correlative and causative, please?
A cause is a relationship between the cause and effect. It's causality. Guess what? If I have something and there's something else in between, then that can be a causation effect. So for example, if I have a sun and there is a piece of street that is being illuminated by that sun, I can make a shadow appear by, oh, I don't know, growing a tree there, building a building there, or holding a board there. I am blocking sunlight. All right?
Yeah, that's what I want you to do.
And guess what? I can block it with a board, a tree, or in this case, a building. Dumb
Right. So for the fourth
Hold on one
time,
second. Hold on
Sean-
one second. I just want to address one super chat from Stephen Bauman for $9.99 before we get too far. He says, I want Riley to produce a testable flat earth model. Still waiting for that. Not this, what about this YEC crap. So thank you, Steve.
I was about $52 million a day, and then I can come up with something in about 50 years. That sounds reasonable.
I will give things
Right,
back
so
to Sean.
can I right, so human me, given that I'm the guest coming into hostile grounds, I don't think I'm being unreasonable to ask Sean for the fourth time to present the video where he puts the laser pen on and demonstrates what seems to be a 4 degrees increase in temperature. Can we have that, please, Sean?
There was 2 questions. Do you want me to answer the second one?
Not really. I want to demonstrate Sean where he's got it on one side that supports him, and then when I ask for the same thing to demonstrate that his claim is true, he doesn't seem to want to do it.
How does the laser... I'm still trying to figure out how the laser thing talks about cold moonlight. I'm just demonstrating the fact that the camera is sensitive enough to pick it up.
Because you're manipulating that cause, aren't you, by putting the laser on it, and you're demonstrating, I think it was 4 degrees variation between the two.
If we're going to talk about, manipulating things, I did manipulate the moonlight directly, and it did not go in line with your claim.
But you didn't manipulate the shade. You relied on it being on the other side of the building, which has got a whole heap of different factors on it.
No, I'm talking about my actual magnification of moonlight through 3 different devices, and none of it
But the
made
issue is
the
whether or
moonlight
not the
colder.
shade makes it warmer or colder or not.
Yeah, it's the fact that there's shade in the first place, dude. So if I
No, that's correlative.
So
Reds, you clearly don't understand this. So let's keep Reds out of this for a minute.
Why do you not understand this? Okay,
I do.
Causation is this: the act or the process of causing something to happen. Whether that act or process.
So
is
what's
caused by a
correlation?
person,
What's correlation, Reds?
Whether it's caused by a person or a building, there's still a cause there, dumbass. Causation
Yeah,
is
go ahead and share
not
any.
human-centric.
What's correlative, Reds?
Correlative means that there is a kind of like you can kind of think of it as 2 things happening at the same time that may not actually affect each other.
Yeah, and that's why we don't correlate in scientific method. That's why we do cause. So is this
That's
the video?
exactly why Sean's experiment and observation is science.
Right, so let's see what he does here, right? So just get to the part where there's the difference on screen between the 2 parameters. Is it 86 and 90? There we go, 4 degrees, 91, 5 degrees. I want Sean to prove the same claim with the shade, that when he casts a shadow, that it drops. Or what did you say? The direct moonlight was warmer than the shade. So that means the shade is colder. I want you to cast a shadow and demonstrate that the shade is colder than the area around it that's exposed to direct moonlight. Will you please do that, Sean?
Again, nature and the building's orientation took care of that for me.
No, it didn't. You can't correlate. You have to manipulate.
What other variables are not being controlled there?
So that's a no then, Sean.
How about an answer? Because you're trying to conflate something. It's like, oh, well, you didn't directly cause shade. The building did that for 2 hours.
Yeah,
and it came up.
So
the claim is that moonlight cools things off, but after 2 hours of direct moonlight, it was warmer than the side that didn't get moonlight.
So when you put the laser on,
a correlation is a mutual relationship where causation is still in question. In this case, the
correct
causation is not in question because we know what's causing the shade. It's the fucking building.
Yeah, but the fucking building, they've got a whole different set of factors that influence the temperature on the other side of it. I'm asking to do the same
thing. The only
thing,
difference was whether it had moonlight shining on it or not.
Exactly. Isn't that the entire fucking observation?
Sean, cast a shadow with a golf ball, and then let's see how cold the temperature of the shade is relative to the direct moonlight. What's so difficult with that?
Again, it was over a 2-hour period that nature did this test for me.
Who cares? Demonstrate it.
Who cares?
The laser
you just did.
So you want me to film for 2 hours to show you how slow the temperature drops?
No, sir. Listen carefully. Put a golf ball, cast a shadow in front of it like you did with the laser. Cast a shadow so that there's a shadow being cast on that thing, and then demonstrate the change in temperature. If you have to leave it there for a minute, do it after a minute, but keep it consistent and then prove that your casting of a shadow is, what did you say? The moonlight was warmer, so therefore the casting of a shadow will be colder. Can you do that for me, please?
You just did.
All right, hold on one second. I'm going to interrupt again for a moment. All right, so we have another super chat from FTFE. Thank you, Craig. He says, Riley, will you debate me on the scientific method, IV/DV, and gravity? Or are you going to say, I hurt your feelings too much? You are wrong about what an IV is, and I can prove it. So we got that from FTFE.
Talking to Craig. Craig thinks that gravity is a force, and nobody in science has thought gravity was a force since 1915. And even George fucking Musa told you that gravity is not a force, but for some reason you still say gravity. It's nonsense, Craig. Until you change your position, you're not even welcome on my channel. Delete all your comments, dude. Stop being dishonest, and I'll consider it. Otherwise, fuck off.
Translation: FTFE. You were right about gravity, so I'm scared of you.
Next question for Riley from the chat. We have AT2 Productions. Jared, question for Riley. Have you considered or accounted for environmental issues with your setup, including but not limited to radiated heat from the environment?
Sure, I did it in an open area where, that green screen on the background was just for that particular photograph's purposes. And when I did my test, it was open to the elements. It was elevated from the ground. Radiated heat in winter is not going to be very much at all. I did consider it. I tried to account for it as best I could, and it will be something that I will endeavor to continue to do, and I will make the changes that Sean has reasonably requested of me to improve my test scores. Will Sean oblige me with the same in return?
Well, since you're asking me to create a shadow for 2 hours, which has already been done by nature, then yeah, I guess I can try, but it's going to be kind of a pain in the ass to be out there and get 2 direct hours of moonlight on a specific night. But I'll try it. You won't be happy, but I'll try it.
Just do it, Sean. Just do it over 10 minutes. Just put your golf ball
again
to the 5th minute.
After a 2 hour, again, Riley, after a 2 hour period, there was only a 2-degree temperature difference.
So I'm asking you to do it over a 10-minute period, demonstrate it before for 5 minutes where there's like a continuous period where there's no golf ball shade, and then after the 5th minute, put the golf ball in and then see what happens. That's all I'm asking. It's not unreasonable, Sean. Come on.
Do you know the difference between correlation and causation?
Hang on, I didn't get an answer off Sean.
Well, again, Riley, you're asking me looking for a difference of 10 minutes that took a 2-hour time span to get a 2-degree difference. No? So you're actually going to say, because I didn't do it for 5 minutes and it's going to show no change, you're going to claim victory somehow?
I'm not claiming victory. I'm making a reasonable request like you did to me, and I agreed.
That's not reasonable.
10 minutes is not reasonable. Why is that not reasonable?
Because it took 2 hours to get a 2-degree temperature difference.
Exactly. I was just going to repeat what Sean said.
So debunk me then. Debunk me then. Do it for 5 minutes where there's no golf ball shade being cast.
Where it will show no difference, and you will claim victory somehow.
Right. So let's demonstrate that with proof, and then do it, and then see who's right.
120 minutes is different than 10 minutes, doofus.
Who cares? We're looking for a change.
Yeah, and the more time that you allow for that change to occur, the more of a chance there is for you of noticing said change.
10 minutes is not unreasonable, Sean.
Again, Riley. Again, Riley. It took 2 hours for a 2-degree temperature change just because of moonlight versus shade.
That's a straw man argument. I didn't make that point.
No, you're telling me to do a 2-hour difference in 10 minutes. You're that is absolutely. I don't even know what kind of fallacy that is. Oh my God.
No, I'm not. Don't be hysterical. I'm making a reasonable request, and I'm asking you.
It's not reasonable. How is looking
hang
for
on.
the same change over 10 minutes that takes
Gentlemen.
2 hours by itself a reasonable request?
Gentlemen. I'm asking for a 10-minute window where 5 minutes is not in shade and then 5 minutes is in shade, and I want you to demonstrate what happens when you do it. Is that unreasonable or not?
You know what's going to happen? A zero
Why?
temperature change.
Well, prove it then. Prove it. 5 minutes in no shade and then 5 minutes in a golf ball shade cast by yourself, and then see what happens with your thermal imaging camera.
Again, I'll be happy to oblige that, but you have to keep in mind I had. Hold on, Riley. I'll be happy to oblige that, but keep in mind I've already done a 2 hours in Moonlight versus 2 hours not in Moonlight. I've already done that.
It's correlative. It's not causative.
So when I do this, is it going to be correlative?
No, because you're causing the shadow, aren't you? And you're causing the change.
It's correlative and causative. Okay, you can.
It's
have
not
both.
correlative. You're causing it. It's within scientific method.
No, it is correlative and causative.
It
Apparently,
isn't.
you
It's
don't know the
causative.
No,
I do know the difference.
No, you don't. Obviously,
I do.
otherwise, if you knew the difference, then you would clearly know that the building casting the
So
shadow.
let's just clarify terms for the benefit of everybody so that we can bind ourselves to an agreement of what's expected on this point. I've got my terms satisfied. You know what I'm going to do, and I know what I'm going to do. Let's just clear it up for the audience. You're going to cast a shadow after 5 minutes where there's been no shadow cast, and you're going to demonstrate that the moonlight is warmer than the shade. Agreed?
Again, Riley.
No.
10 minutes isn't going to get that result. It took 2 hours to get that difference, not 10
Well,
minutes.
Let's test it.
This is where you're building your straw man. I did
not
not
building a straw man.
take
I'm
a
saying
10
you
minute
need to
gap and
manipulate.
say here's a 2 degree temperature difference over 10 minutes. It was 2 hours. You're telling me to do this in 10 minutes. Otherwise, it's fake.
Sean,
No. I'm asking you for a reasonable adjustment to your test, and I'm saying that 5 minutes in no shade and then 5 minutes in the shade and see what happens. What's the problem?
And you said that if I don't see that 2 degree temperature difference, then I'm wrong. Then
No,
that
I
is a
didn't.
straw man.
I didn't. I just asked you
2
to do it.
hours, Anthony. Over 10 minutes,
Sean,
there will be zero change.
Sean,
Don't be getting hysterical. I just asked you to do it. I didn't say what the results would
What
be.
you
Hang
are
on.
asking Sean to do is make his observation or experimentation worse. You're asking him to make it worse by cutting the amount of time there is to allow for a temperature change in the first place. Why would you ask him to make his experiment worse?
All right.
Because I'm happy to gamble that it'll actually it'll cause a fluctuation in the temperature in just 5 minutes. And if I'm wrong,
No,
then
because
you
he doesn't want
guys
to give you that
might-
straw man.
Hang on.
All right. Hold on one second.
If I'm
Hold on one
wrong and it
second.
doesn't do it.
Hold on, Riley. Please. Thank you. All right, so I just want to address a couple more things. First thing was a $2 super chat from GPS. He says, Sleeping Warrior, do you still say the Doppler effect isn't real?
Who cares? It's not proving anything. It's not. You can't cause anything, prove anything by it. And we're still waiting for his video.
I have another $10 super chat from FTFE. Riley, did George say gravity acts like a force, yes or no? And did George say Einstein builds on Newton, yes or no? You are saying you won't debate me until I agree with you. That's a coward's move.
I don't care. Call me a coward. So, Sean, 5
Hold
minutes
up.
in the
Sean
5
can't hear
minutes
you.
with no shade.
Hold on. He can't hear you. I have to give him the headphones back. Last thing, I will address. Thank you, Heat Shield, for that. I did notice that you wrote in the chat that, while obviously everything FE is wrong, that Sleeping Warrior has been extremely respectful on the channel and to me in person. So I do definitely appreciate that and do definitely give Sleeping Warrior props for that. So thank you, Riley. And I will give it back to Sean.
Hang on a minute. It was me that you took it off.
What?
Okay, so all I'm asking, if there's no change, then there's no change. But I'm asking that there's 5 minutes in the direct moonlight, and then there's 5 minutes in a cast shadow that Sean causes himself, and he proves that he causes it, and then let's see what happens. If it doesn't do anything, then you can laugh at me. But if it does do something, and it doesn't support the assertion that moonlight is warmer than the shade, then I want Sean to admit now that he will change his position and admit that maybe it didn't go the way he claimed it after all. Will you agree, Sean?
Repeat that again? I missed the first part of that.
Your claim was that the moonlight is warmer than the direct shade, correct?
That's the results that I got from looking at two sides of the building.
Okay, so for 5 minutes, put the direct moonlight on whatever and measure the temperature with your camera. And then cast a shadow for the other 5 minutes. And then let's see what your camera picks up as a result of causing the cast shadow. And let's see what happens. Do you agree?
Yeah, and my prediction is over a 10-minute period, there will be no change.
and I predict that there will be a change and the shade will get warmer and you guys will have to change your position and won't because you deny.
So in other words, Sean, you have to make your experiment objectively worse in every conceivable metric, and then
In Red's opinion.
No, in actuality, we're
Yeah,
talking.
but I'm happy to gamble that it's
fucking hours into 10 minutes, you dumbass.
That's okay. I'm all right to gamble.
I literally understand that math is not your thing, but my fucking god, dude.
So let me get this straight, Riley.
Maths is not.
Let me get this straight, Riley.
This up. Maths is not my thing because I'm more interested in cause and effect, right? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to cause.
You're trying to compress 2 hours into 10.
Who cares? He's agreed he's going to do it. So let's see.
No, Riley. Riley, understand this. I'm not agreeing to what your terms are because you're wanting to have that temperature change in 10 minutes when it takes about 2 hours to get. My prediction is over a 10. No. My prediction over a 10-minute period.
I'm not claiming. Listen, I'm not claiming that there will be or won't be. What I'm saying is let's see what happens.
Yeah, and you said that if I don't show it, then I'm wrong. No, over a 10-minute period, there will be no change according to my prediction.
Personally, I wouldn't even do it because I would just refuse to make my.
Yeah, that's because it's not going to prove. It's not going to show that the moonlight is warmer.
I refuse to make my observation worse. I refuse to make it worse.
But so basically what you're saying is that whilst I've agreed to make reasonable changes, you guys don't want to make reasonable changes when I'm asking you to do something causative? Really?
Change that went over 2 hours
Riley,
down to 10 minutes.
Riley,
it's not a reasonable change.
Where did I say I wasn't going to do it, Riley?
No,
Go ahead, shove more words in my mouth.
No, I'm speaking to Reds when I say that. I know Sean's agreed, but Reds doesn't seem to want to agree to Sean agreeing.
Whether Sean agrees or not, I'm saying I personally wouldn't do it. Now you're putting
because
words in
you're
my
not doing
mouth.
the test. You're not doing the test.
Yeah, because I'm not going to waste my time trying to squeeze 2 hours into 10 minutes.
No, Red.
Stop moaning about it. It's not even your test.
Red, what he's trying to do is saying, I'm actually going to make this prediction now. I'll do the test his way. When it shows no result in change of temperature because of me creating a shadow, he'll say, well, then my first results were false because it's not over a 2-hour period.
No, if you do it and it causes no effect, I will say, do you know what, Sean? I thought it would cause an effect and it didn't. I'm sorry. I was wrong. But if it does cause an effect, will you do the same in return?
Oh, yes. I actually follow the evidence, unlike some people.
Excellent. So cause the evidence yourself by casting the shadow and seeing what happens with your camera.
Oh, you mean like how a building can also cause a shadow?
No, that's correlative.
That's causative.
It's not. It's got completely different factors to it.
Is the building causing the shadow, which you already...
Reds, come on. Stop being a peeve. We know that you're wrong. Everybody knows you're wrong.
No, actually, the moon is behind the building causing a shadow because of the building.
Right, so whose mod? Is Jessica mod or is Red's mod?
She can't actually hear what's going on right now because there's only one set of earphones here.
I'm the mod. I'm the boss here.
You're the mod. You're supposed to be impartial.
Supposed to be, yeah.
So let's just be clear. Sean's agreed that he will cause 5 minutes in direct moonlight and then he'll cast a shadow for another 5 minutes and measure the results of the effect, right? See if there's actually a change. And my claim is that the shadow will be warmer than the moonlight. Sean's claim is that it'll have either no effect or it'll get colder because direct moonlight is actually warmer than the casting of the shadow. Correct?
Yep. But it won't happen within a 10-minute period.
Maybe it won't. But that's what we're trying to test, aren't we? We're trying to see, is there a cause and effect relationship?
There is.
According to you guys.
No, according to science, which you don't.
No, you haven't done science. You've correlated, and that's outside scientific method.
It caused it.
You didn't. You correlated it. You didn't manipulate anything.
The building caused
it. Thank you very much, Reds. You've been a great mod. But now we've got the test that we're both going to do, and we can both resume in a month after the full moon period. Agreed?
What's our next full moon?
Then remember to learn the difference between correlation and causation and get back to me when you figure it out.
No worries, Reds. Let's see the results, the cause and effect. And make sure you prove that you caused the shadow yourself, right? By putting it on whatever.
Because obviously the shadows are different, right?
No, it's the causing of the shadow that's the issue. We want to see that there's a cause.
The shadows are indifferent?
No, we need to see that Sean's caused it.
No, the shadows are biased, man.
Sean's caused it and whether or not it had an influence on the results.
I'm going to also start a timer to see how long it takes you to answer the question, does the building cause shadows?
It's irrelevant. We know that it causes shadows, but there's other factors that influence what's going on the other side of the building.
Anthony,
question of causation.
Anthony, December 12th is our next full moon. So we'll shoot for like the week before, week after, in case, just so we can rule out weather's causing issues. So we'll have like a 2-week period of being able to do these tests. Is that fine with you?
I don't know whether I can do that because we get a lot of cloud cover over here this time of the year. If I get a clear night,
that's why I expanded it to a 2-week period. 1 week before the full moon, 1 week after. That whole range we can do these tests in.
Agreed. I'll do it the best I can do it in the weather conditions I've got. And if it's cloudy, it's cloudy. But I'll try and get it the best night I can get it, and we'll see what happens. But remember the parameters: 5 minutes in the direct moon, 5 minutes in shade, and measure the results, and let's see what happens.
Yep.
Right. That was easy, wasn't it? Christ, it only took us like an hour.
Yeah. Even though you got me blocked on your channel, I still can be civil to a point.
I know, but you're only civil when it's in front of an audience. When you're in comments,
no. I stay civil with you until you piss me off. Then it's no holds barred.
Yeah, that's about like 10 minutes.
Like when you're being intentionally dishonest.
Passing the headphones.
Oh, here we go. Back in the gutter, Reds. Right, guys, I'm done for the evening. I'm going back to my movie. So, Jessica, thank you for your hospitality.
Hold on 1 second. Absolutely. I do appreciate it. And, definitely thank you all for coming. Thank you, Sean, Reds, and definitely Anthony. We'll keep in touch and we'll schedule a redo for a couple weeks from now after the next full moon.
Definitely.
Definitely by then, if you have, your choice of moderator, Anthony, ready, we'll definitely take care of that as well. And, we'll redo it. Definitely.
Just remember you need to snip out this section where we've said what Sean's going to do and what I've said I'm going to do, because I'll change my bits. I want Sean to do his bits and cast the shadow and measure the results and see what happens.
Oh, it definitely will.
Cool. Right, I'm out of here and going back to watch my movie. So thank you guys for your hospitality and your time. It was appreciated. I enjoyed it, and we'll resume in a month.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. No problem. So before we get off here, I will just address a few more of the super chats that came in. Digital Demonic Davros said, for $2, a mass wrapping space-time creates a force, gravity. And then the last one from FTFE. Yep, now I'll definitely read that one. Did FTFE hurt Leaky Warriors Fifis? Duh. So with that, I definitely thank everybody for coming. Thank you, Reds, for moderating and hosting. Thank you, Sean, for, this. Obviously thank you to Anthony for doing it as well. He definitely did, keep things relatively civil. So I appreciate that. Very respectful to the channel, and to myself. We'll be back in about a month with this debate. In the meantime, just keep a lookout for, more debates coming. Like I said, I do have a couple of feelers out for a few more debates as well. So, we'll see what happens with that. And then that's about it. If you have anything else you'd like to say, Reds?
Sure. Correlation, once again, is just a relationship, not necessarily mean that there's a cause between the two, just that there's a relationship between 2 points of data. Whatever causes something, like for example, a building causing a shadow, that is still a causal relation between the building and a shadow. It doesn't matter if a person is doing the shading or not, or manipulating the shading or not, a shadow is a shadow. The fact that Sleeping Warrior is so painfully ignorant of this fact is one of the reasons I totally support him being nominated for Dumb Fuck of the Year. So we will go ahead and ask the question over and over and over and over again. And the question, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers and sisters, is, does a building cause a shadow? And I'll just leave it like that.
According to Riley, no.
Oh, of course not. No. I mean, and also let me go ahead and just make sure something is clear, because he's constantly using independent variable. All right. I want to just highlight something right here, right now. An independent variable is just a variable that stands on its own. It isn't changed by any other variables in the measurement or in the observation. Like, for example, like the Chicago skyline, height of the towers, the curvature of the earth, the distance between the camera and the towers. All of those are independent variables because none of those things can change each other. They are variables that are independent. So he is defining independent variable as the presumed cause. In other words, a guess on what is causing X or Y. It sounds like he's just describing that which is a hypothesis. So why not just say hypothesis instead of confusing people like a dishonest little shit by applying the wrong definition to a term like independent variable? I've looked all over for where independent variable is a synonym for hypothesis, and I found nothing. So that is another term that he's getting wrong. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there's so much I wanted to say because, Anthony's had me blocked for just about a year now.
I'm probably blocked now.
Oh, yeah. Dude, you probably been blocked forever. But I would like to point out one thing that he said early on, and I was really wanting to address this. He said that this is the first time you've ever been in a hangout with him, Red. Is that true?
No.
Yeah. Why did he lie?
Because he's a lying liar who lies.
Yeah. I specifically remember there was 2 hangouts that introduced me to Riley, and they happen to be both on your channel. It's amazing how quickly he forgets.
It's amazing how quickly he forgets the definition of correlation and causation. It's amazing how quickly he makes up definition for independent variable. It's amazing how he doesn't seem to understand that a shadow is a shadow, regardless what or who is causing it. I mean, there's a lot of things that are amazing about Anthony Riley, and by amazing, I mean sad. Just simply sad. Absolutely fucking sad.
Well, with that, I'm going to pass this back to JC because I think that we're pretty well winding down now. So,
yep, we're done.
Thanks, guys.
Peace out, everyone. It's been fun. In quotes.
Yeah, thank you all again. And just this Friday at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be having our next movie night. We did have to postpone it this past week, so I do apologize for that. But it's definitely going to be on this Friday night, so everybody make sure you're setting your reminders, and as soon as that link goes up, we'll be good. So again, thank you all. If nobody has anything else that they'd like to add, we'll go ahead and end it there. All right, thank you all very much.